Lauren from A Girl in Her Wool here. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, and I'm going to do another weekly project recap video. If you missed last week, I didn't do a video like this to recap all my projects, but I did have a cast-on party, which ended up being a lot of fun. I just had a few projects that I wanted to get ready in project bags, so when I was ready for a new project, I would have it ready to go. So yeah, I set up, I think, 4 projects. So I'm gonna just recap them here since that video got long and I ended up cutting a lot of it out. But I just kind of sat and chatted, and I hope it was fun, and I hope to do that again soon. I guess once I have space in project bags to cast on more projects. I don't anticipate doing one too soon, but we'll see how productive I get this summer. So yeah, I'm gonna run through the projects that I'm working on, and I do want to show those cast-ons since I cut a lot out, and I'm not even sure what ended up making it into the final cut. So I'm just gonna show those and talk about them a little bit, and show you and talk about what I've been doing this week. So the first project I have is my painting Brooks shawl, which really is the only true whip I'm going to show you. I'm laughing because my mom laughs at me that I say I only have one whip and then I show like a million projects, but you know, that's how it goes. So this is pretty much what I've been spending most of my time knitting on. I really haven't had too much knitting time, but yesterday was my birthday, so happy birthday to me. It was also my shop's birthday, so stay tuned. I'm going to chat about that at the end of this for a little bit. But so I took the day off from my full-time job. I did not work on anything Etsy related other than filming and uploading a little quick shop update video yesterday. So I basically knit all day long, and it was amazing. I wish today were still yesterday. But anyway, I will be back at work. I'm filming this early in the morning. It's before I need to log on for work, but I will be working today and for the rest of the week. So anyway, my painting brick shawl, this is a pattern by Stephen West. And I'm not going to be able to show this, it's huge, but you'll get the main idea. So I'm using my hand-dyed yarn, A Girl in Her Wool, on my sock base, which is a superwash merino nylon blend. And for the contrast colors that you see here, I'm using my Neon Unicorn Gradient, which is my newest gradient kit, and it's live in the shop now, so you can order it. And for the main color, which is kind of the outlines that you see there, that's my denim colorway, which is a tonal blue. And I have no idea where I last showed this to you because it would have been 2 weeks ago at this point, but I did make a lot of progress. I know I did all of the pink yesterday, which doesn't look like a lot, but there's between 400 and 500 stitches on the needles right now. So it was a lot. But yeah, it's not even flopping down correctly there, but you get the main idea. And you can check out Ravelry and Instagram for photos as well. So the way that the pattern works is in the original pattern, each kind of row of rectangles here is a different contrast color. So you cut your contrast color at the end of each repeat and move on to the next, which makes like a rainbow effect in his original pattern. And the way that I'm doing it is I'm using most, not all, but most of my 15-gram skeins that I have for this pattern, or for this kit that I dyed up. And so you can see that the first color kind of goes from here till about here, so it's a lot of rows just because they were much shorter, and then you can kind of see the rows kind of blend more as you go on. So this is probably colors like 4 through 7 here. I am on the 7th color. This kind of pink in this last row is color 7, so I still have 8, 9, and 10, and I'm just at the border pretty much. I think I have like one more section before the border. So I'm getting there. I'm hoping I could finish this by next week. Is that possible? You know, the thing with shawls is you think you're, okay, I'm almost at the border. I must be almost done. But when there's 500 plus stitches on the needles, it's probably not possible. But maybe in the next week or so, I will have this finished. And I'm so excited. This is going to be so comfortable to wrap myself up in. It's going to be huge and humongous. So I'm sure it'll be great for really cold days, but for the most part, I think it'll be like a great cuddle on the couch type of wrap. So anyway, I love the colors. I love how the gradient is looking in the pattern versus kind of like the rainbow look. I think it's really fun. I think it's a great way to kind of show off the gradient. And what could go wrong? Turquoise, hot pink, Stephen West. It's all good. So yeah, I worked on that like all day yesterday. And the pattern, so this is the original shawl pattern, which I have to say you get very used to. And I think for some rows, you kind of just look at what the row is going to be, and then you can kind of go. You don't really need to sit and stare at the pattern too much. There's also a new one that he came out with that's just like a rectangular wrap. So it's a huge rectangular wrap, but it's all the border, which the border is a chevron look. So I think that one would work really well, especially with the gradient, because then you really can just use up all the yarn you have and move on. So I'm kind of doing between 12 and 13 grams of each, which is about how much the pattern calls for. And you can check out my Ravelry page. I'm keeping track of which rows I change my colors on. So if you are interested in using any of my gradient sets for this pattern, you can follow along with that to make sure that, you would have enough too. So yeah, that's the painting bricks shawl. Again, that's what I'm mostly working on, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm hoping now that I'm looking at it, maybe I'll be done with it next week. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I've been working on. I also have my Drakenfell shawl, which I'm not going to show. It's just a garter stitch stripe section that I've been working through. Nothing too exciting. For that pattern, I really am trying not to, set any deadlines or anything. I kind of just work on it when I have time to sit and read. And so it's going slowly. It looks pretty much the same as last time, probably. And I'll just kind of show it when I make some decent progress on it. So for this next section, I'm going to just kind of recap all of the projects that I cast on. And again, the reason why I did this was because I find the beginning of projects, they're a lot of work. And sometimes, you finish up a project and you're in the middle of whatever, and you just don't want to take the time to find the needles, wind the yarn, print the pattern or download the pattern, cast on. Cast-ons can be some of the hardest part. When you cast on, the stitches can be tighter, or maybe you're using a cast-on that you've never used before, and then you have to watch YouTube and all that stuff. So what I ended up doing was casting on projects, and I got them to a point where I've now entered the main part of the pattern, which means that when I pick it up, I won't have to do all the things I just listed, and I really will be able to just kind of go with it. And I don't want to make it seem like these are now grab and go projects. They're not. The first one I'm going to show you is a colorwork yoke sweater. So it's not a grab and go pattern, but it's already up to the colorwork part. So when I sit down to work on it, it's already on the needles. The stitch count is right. The yarn is there, and I have the pattern all set up and ready to go in my phone. The yarn that I'm using is Ramo Yarns Phenol PT2, and this is the colorway if that's of interest to you. I don't know which one is the colorway and which is the dye lot, but the main color is kind of this pink. That's kind of pretty good. It's a little lighter than I think what that looks like. And then I have a few contrast colors, which I'll show in a minute. So this is what I did during the cast on party. And again, I did continue to work on it a little bit afterwards just to get it to a good point. But what I've done is the neckline. So it's just a garter stitch neckline. and then they had, I think, a couple of rows, and then started the color work yoke. So what made the cast on party work was I have all the needles here. So again, watch back to hear a little bit more about my swatch. But I was able to gather all of my needles. So the neckline, I'm using a size 1. For the main body, I'll be using a size 2. And I'm using a size 3 for the color work. So I have all of these needles set up in the bag. Again, I've done the first row of color work because that was the first row that I switched to my size 3 needles. So now it's on the correct needles. And I have the pattern and the yarn in the bag here. So this is my first contrast color that I'm going to use, which is a white basically. And the other two are off to the side here. One of them is like a light brown, and then like a taupey brown, and then one is a slate blue gray. And the pattern that I am knitting is the All Theta pattern by Jennifer Steingass. And it's a colorwork yoke. The body will be stockinette. There's no patterning on the sleeves, I don't think. And it just has like a florally type colorwork yoke pattern. And I saw someone's project page where they used a gradient throughout that colorwork yoke, and I thought that that was beautiful. So I am going to be using my contrast colors kind of in the same way. I marked the project so I can go back and see when they switch colors. So I'll do white first, and then the brown, and then the blue at the bottom, and then the rest of the sweater will be in the main color. So that's the first cast on that I did, and my plan is to actually work on this once I finish my painting brick shawl. So then this will become kind of like that main project that I'm working on, and that will go until I finish the colorwork yoke and split for the sleeves, and it's just a stockinette body, and then it'll be like a reading type project too. So that was the first project. The next two projects I have in one bag here because I was out of project bags. But I ended up casting on 2 different sock patterns. And again, I'm not 100% sure what made it in. I don't think the second pair of socks made it in at all. So I'll definitely talk about that. And I think for the first color, I kind of cut it funny. So the first pair of socks that I'm making are just a vanilla pair of socks. And I'm making them out of laser sheep yarn. So normally when I start projects, I take the ball band and I kind of just get rid of it. So I've been trying to make myself stay in a good habit of keeping them so I can show you guys. But this is laser sheep yarns, and it's the Fish Are Friends Not Food colorway, which is a Finding Nemo reference, and it's on the laser sock base. I bought this yarn, so you can see it here. It's a white base that has speckles of orange and different blues and black. And yeah, so I bought this yarn when I was out in San Diego for a work trip. I got there for a work conference that was during the week, but I got there Sunday, kind of late afternoon. It was in the fall, so it was when you changed the clocks back, and I live on the East Coast, so it was a 3-hour time change just going coast to coast. And then because we moved the clocks back, it actually was a 4-hour time change for me, so I was a mess. I got there, like I said, in the afternoon, and I didn't do too much San Diego exploring. I mean, I've been there before, but I did end up going on a long walk, and my destination was a yarn store. And I think I ended up walking like 6 miles that day, just walking there and back. I think the hotel we were in for the conference was a little bit set off from the main part of town. So I went for a long walk, and I got to the yarn store and was just like so completely out of it. But I told them I wanted locally hand-dyed yarn, and this was one of them. And then I also got a couple of other skeins that have since turned into a shawl that I wear all the time. So again, this is kind of touristy vacation souvenir yarn that I'm going to be turning into vanilla socks. And I think in the video I kind of cut off the part where I talked about how I like to knit my socks with contrast toes, cuffs, and heels. So that is why I kind of have the black yarn on here. So I'm knitting these socks toe up, 2 at a time, which is how I like to do my vanilla socks. And then I'm just doing it with a black contrast for the toes, cuffs, and heels. So I have the 2 toes. Again, this was part of the cast on party. So I have the 2 socks cast on, or the 2 toes done, and then I did the first row of the main color. And the reason for that is now the black yarn is cut off. I'll have my Weave It In Wednesday tomorrow where I'll weave in all of these ends. And the sock is now a vanilla sock ready to go. The new yarn is attached and I don't have to worry about the toes or the black yarn until I get to the heels. So those will be ready to go whenever I need a pair of vanilla socks. You never know when you need a pair of vanilla socks. And now the toes are done, so they are ready to go and be stockinette and thoughtless and everything, which is always great. So the other pair of socks that I have in here, I'm going to be doing a patterned sock from Curious Handmaids, Handmade Sock Society Season 1, and I'm stalling until I remember which one I'm doing, the Magnolia socks. So I am doing those socks out of my hand-dyed yarn, A Girl and Her Wool. This is my new BFL sock base. If it's not in the shop already, it will be there soon. That's on my to-do list for this week. So if you don't see it there yet, hang tight, and it'll be there soon. But in the meantime, if you do want something out of this base, the pricing is all the same. So you can always just add a note in when you make the purchase. There's a note to seller, and you can just say you want it on the BFL base if you don't see it before then and you're dying to get it. But the BFL sock base is really great. It's 400 yards per 100 grams. It's a 80% superwash BFL, 20% nylon, and it's a high twist base. So it's a really good sock yarn. You know, it'll last forever. And this is my golden hour colorway, which is just a tonal gold with bits of kind of the yellow stands out sometimes and the brown stands out sometimes, but a good golden color. And I am knitting these one at a time on DPN. So I love using DPNs, and I like doing pattern socks one at a time. So that's kind of why I decided to put these on here. So again, I already have the toe completely done. And so when I'm ready for these pattern socks, I'll just have to look up the pattern and get going on it. So again, another pair of socks ready to go if I ever want them. And that is it. So the last project wasn't actually a cast on, but I wanted to show it too. I got one last project kind of ready to go in a way. I'm trying to do more charity projects this year out of my leftovers. I've talked about this a ton, but I don't think this made it into the video. So this is Cascade Heritage Prints. It's the Dallas colorway, and this is leftovers from a pair of socks that I made for my husband. He has large feet, but he likes shorty socks, so I can still get socks for him out of one skein of yarn and have leftovers. So what I did to kind of prep this project was, one, I figured out how much yarn I had left of it, and I planned what I was going to do. So with some of these projects, some of my leftovers, like for example, when I make socks for myself, I use about 50 or 55 grams of yarn. So I have quite a lot left over, and I don't want to make a ton of hats out of the same colorway. And so I ended up, for one of them, making a little baby sweater, and then I made hats with the leftovers. But for this one, I have like 18 grams left. So I did decide I'm just going to make 2 hats out of this. So in my bag, I have that. I have the needles that I will use, and that's all ready to go. So for me, kind of the obstacle there was just figuring out what I was going to make with the leftovers. So now that that's done, I feel like that's ready to go. I really want to get better about picking this up a little bit more often. Again, I didn't cast it on because by the time you cast on a preemie hat, it's like half done. So for me, those are easy to pick up. And again, I have the needles, I have the yarn ready to go. So that is it. I had a mega cast on party and I think it was such a fun idea. I'm so glad I did it, and I'm just like really glad that the projects are just ready to go. I've talked before, I'm like such a checklist person that I definitely knit projects for the project. I like to get them done. I don't know. It's like, what's the difference if you're knitting on this or that? But just having them wound, cast on, needles are here because that's always a challenge. It's just, you know, half the time you don't even have the right size needle. So everything's all ready to go, and that makes me excited for when I finish up projects. I don't have the burden of all of that nonsense. So that is it. The one thing I just wanted to mention about my shop is, like I said, yesterday was my birthday. It was also my shop's first birthday. So I opened up my shop on May 11th, 2019. And I am hosting a birthday sale. So everything in the shop is 15% off. That excludes advent calendars. And you can shop. I am not 100% sure when the sale will end. This video is going to go up Wednesday. So honestly, it might have ended by now, but probably hasn't. I'm thinking I'm going to take it down the end of day Wednesday. But maybe I'll keep it up all week. We'll see. And so check that out. Again, I'm going to try and get the BFL base loaded. And I mentioned this in the shop update video, but I'm also going to just like kind of go through listings and colorways, and I might take some down. We'll see. So if you do see something you like, it's a double good chance to grab it because one, it's on sale, and two, it may just disappear. I don't plan on necessarily giving warning. I'm just going to kind of do some spring cleaning, and that is it. So again, there are also advent calendars in my shop. I'm offering 2 different ones this year. One is kind of a wintry colored fade gradient, and then the other one is a colorful mystery everyday mini skein. They won't fade into each other. They'll just be random. So go check those out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.